Cumberland Falls in Kentucky is one of the few places on Earth where a moonbow, a rainbow created by moonlight, regularly appears. Do you know Cumberland Falls moonbow can sometimes form a full semicircle at night, making the waterfall glow like a pale, walking rainbow? Stranger still, the Ark Encounter in Williamstown is a full-size 510-foot replica of Noah's Ark and ranks among the world's largest timber structures. From moonlit waterfalls to giant wooden arks and secret sandstone cliffs in Red River Gorge, Kentucky hides natural wonders almost no one expects. Cumberland Falls is one of the rare waterfalls on Earth where a moonbow forms so reliably that generations have planned pilgrimages around the lunar calendar. Do you know Cumberland Falls, often called the Niagara of the South, produces a nightly thunder of mist and an overnight spectacle that few places can claim? The water plunges roughly 68 feet over a horseshoe lip, carving a dramatic gorge through sandstone and shale. These rocks hold stories of ancient seas and compressions that sculpted hidden caves and slick, moss-covered ledges. From the overlook, the curtain of white water unfurls into a frothy pool, sending spray into sunlit rainbows by day and spectral moonbows by night. Rangers point to an old path where early settlers and Cherokee hunters once crossed, binding human history to the geological drama. Beneath the falls, the current churns, and kayakers with steady nerves navigate the calmer stretches of the Cumberland River below. Trails radiate out from the park, threading through old-growth hemlocks and rhododendron tunnels that hint at forests older than the town, names on any map. In autumn, the trees flare crimson and gold, a living frame for the thundering water that draws photographers and poets in equal measure. Birdsong and the distant croak of frogs layer the soundscape, reminding visitors that this is wilderness, stitched to community. The park's lodge and stone bridge feel like a borrowed page from a century-old postcard. Yet the stories told here are still being written. Night programs bring interpreters who trace constellations above the falls and explain how moonlight refracts through millions of droplets to birth the moonbow. Beyond the rim, the Daniel Boone National Forest extends like a green cathedral, offering backcountry routes that keep the river's story moving. Hikers can follow ridgelines toward the Cumberland Gap, where paths and rivers once guided migration and commerce across the Appalachians. Each summer, the roar of Cumberland Falls threads into local festivals, teaching a new generation to respect both power and fragility. Conservation efforts here balance access and protection, protecting rare mussels and native trout that depend on cold, clear headwaters. Stand at the rail during a full moon and the moonbow can appear, a a pale arch that seems to bridge past rituals with present wonder. It is this rare blend of geology, wildlife, history, and Inuit memory that makes Cumberland Falls a single place that opens onto many others. You leave the park smelling of wet stone and wildflower, carrying a story that naturally pulls you toward the ridges and hollows beyond. Follow that pull, and the river will lead you onward, each bend revealing another secret of Kentucky's wild heart. In Williamstown, Kentucky, a full-scale reconstruction of Noah's Ark stretches 510 feet, longer than a football field, and built to the biblical dimensions. Do you know that inside its timbered ribs, visitors walk through multi-level decks that recreate daily life from a story told across millennia? The Ark Encounter is not merely a static model. It functions as a vast museum of interpretation with life-size animal displays and immersive exhibits. Many are surprised to find working shipwright detail, educational galleries, and rooms designed to provoke questions about history, science, and faith. Stepping from the sunlit bow into dim, narrow aisles, guests encounter dioramas that blend natural history with biblical narrative and modern design. It's an engineered experience that challenges expectations and often leads visitors to seek out nearby sites for broader context. Just down the road, the Creation Museum complements the Ark with botanical gardens, planetarium shows, and exhibits that trace a particular interpretation of origins. Together, they form a pilgrimage of sorts, linking Williamstown to a wider cultural landscape across Kentucky. Beyond religion and debate, the Ark has reshaped the local economy, drawing families, school groups, and curious travelers into northern Kentucky. Small towns that once relied on river traffic now host cafes, inns, and tour operators ready to connect this modern curiosity with Mammoth Cave's subterranean past. Inside the Ark's vaulted spaces, the scale forces a physical reckoning. Ancient measurements made material through modern craft. Many leave feeling they've walked a giant thought experiment, and then seek the state's other historical and geological wonders. For filmmakers, historians, and travelers, Seeking the unexpected in Kentucky, the Ark Encounter is a fulcrum between myth and material culture. It's an invitation to see how stories shape landscapes, from wooden decks to limestone caves. Cliff Palace in Red River Gorge, Kentucky, shelters one of the state's only massive sandstone alcove ecosystems, where constant humidity fosters ancient ferns and mosses rarely seen elsewhere in North America. Do you know Cliff Palace in Red River Gorge hides cliff-lined amphitheaters so deep they create their own microclimates and support plant communities older than the forests above? Walk along its rim, and you find not just sheer walls, but stacked ledges that preserve layers of time, from fossilized ripple marks to streaks of ochre left by groundwater. In these sheltered hollows, rare maidenhair ferns unfurl beside delicate liverworts, and tiny springs feed pools that glow with the green of life few visitors ever notice. Cliff Palace is also a crossroads for migration, where warblers pause and peregrine falcons patrol vertical corridors carved by ancient rivers. The same sandstone that sculpts these alcoves reaches out along ridgelines toward Natural Bridge and the gorge's famed arches, linking Cliff Palace to a wider cathedral of stone. Historically, these overhangs offered shelter to the people who moved through the region for millennia, leaving behind traces in charcoal, tools, and routes that still guide modern explorers. Go deeper, and you'll hear the subtle sounds of water slipping through channels, a quiet that explains why certain lichens and insects evolved here and nowhere else nearby. Every crevice is a small world, each connected by a network of canyons that funnel sunlight, wind, and rain in ways that shape life uniquely at Cliff Palace. And when you leave its shadows, the trail opens toward the gorge's other wonders, carrying stories of shelter, survival, and secrets etched into Kentucky's Sawney. Stretches of mature mixed mesophytic hardwoods in Kentucky, with canopy layers that mirror forests thought lost to time. Do you know Berea College Forest functions as a living laboratory where students practice sustainable forestry, field research, and hands-on restoration on parcels still bearing 19th century land use scars? In spring, the understory explodes with native trilliums, ramps, and yellow lady slippers that carpet hollows between old-growth oaks. Beneath the leaf litter, salamanders, so numerous and varied, make the forest floor hum with life, their diversity rivaling that of distant tropical slopes. trails wind past experimental plots where timber is harvested by the college to fund scholarships, linking conservation with community in a rare practical loop. Students learn to read tree rings, map vernal pools, and coax degraded hillsides back toward complex native assemblages instead of monoculture pine stands. Hidden ravines host hemlock refuges resisting an invasive insect, and researchers monitor microclimates that buffer species through hot summers and late frosts. Old stone walls and charcoal hearths whisper the area's human history, each ruin connected to the forest's current mosaic of canopy openings and regrowth. Birdsong changes by elevation and slope, and wood thrush's nest where oak mast feeds migrating flocks each fall. From these ridgelines, the landscape flows east into Daniel Boone National Forest, creating wildlife corridors that keep gene flow moving across the region. Seasonal floods in narrow creeks sculpt rich floodplain soils that nurture sugar maples and pawpaw stands not seen in typical Kentucky hills. Community forestry classes map these waterways, then follow them downhill to study sediment, water quality, and trout habitat links. At night, the canopy filters the stars, but the forest still records constellations in the chorus of nocturnal insects and frogs. Light traps and acoustic surveys reveal moths and katydids that are little known but vital to pollination and food webs. Harvested timber becomes accessible tuition, turning each mature tree into an investment in education and local stewardship. That circular model draws students from across disciplines: biology, history, sustainable agriculture, each contributing to a living, teaching landscape. If you follow an old logging road long enough, you'll find a sequestration project testing how rewilding patches restores carbon and biodiversity. Those experimental plots connect to neighboring private woodlots, where foresters adopt proven techniques, expanding conservation beyond campus borders. By listening to the forest's layered stories, you begin to see how place, people, and practice intertwine across Kentucky's hills. And as Berea College Forest breathes, it quietly reshapes both the land and the futures of the students who steward it. Rare beetles and lichens recorded here serve as early warning indicators of climate shifts and forest health. Long-term data sets collected by undergraduates give scientists a rare window into change over decades, rather than single seasons. Visitors who trek these folds discover that stewardship here isn't distant theory, but daily practice. Planting saplings, clearing invasive brush, protecting vernal pools. Each action threads Berea's small forest into a larger tapestry of Appalachian recovery, inviting others to replicate its quietly powerful lessons. Sliding out of the bluegrass and into the city, the Louisville Zoo sits on 134 acres, where urban edge meets wild habitat. It is one of the few American zoos that recreates entire ecosystems rather than just cages, letting herds, flocks, and predators move through habitats designed like living landscapes. Inside those landscapes, you'll find unexpected neighbors, a shoreline for penguins that blends into freshwater exhibits where river otters play. The zoo's conservation labs work quietly behind the scenes, piloting captive breeding and river restoration projects that ripple far beyond its gates. Visitors watch keepers coax an elusive big cat across a rocky ridge, then stroll down to reconstructed wetlands, where rescued herons and turtles recover. Those scenes are not stage theater. They are living classrooms born from partnerships with universities and state agencies, designed to send animals and knowledge back into the wild. Children press their faces to glass as armored reptiles and playful primates go about their days, and every exhibit carries a plaque that tells a surprising conservation story. Behind the plaques, veterinarians run micro-labs that sequence genomes and help rehabilitate river systems that flow straight into the Ohio River basin. From the zoo's elevated paths, you can follow corridors of green that connect directly to nearby parks, linking this wildlife refuge to Louisville's network of public spaces. That connection is intentional. The zoo is not an isolated attraction, but part of an urban blueprint that stitches human neighborhoods to migratory routes. On special nights, the zoo dims the lights and becomes a classroom under the stars, where biologists map bat flights and school children learn to identify calls by ear. Those nocturnal surveys have led to tiny discoveries. A new roost here, an unexpected migration stop there, that changed local planning decisions. The surprising part is how often these small local wins amplify. A restored stream behind the primate house reduces flooding downtown and improves spawning habitat miles away. The Louisville Zoo, then, is less an isolated menagerie and more a living experiment in how cities and wild things can thrive together. Walk out of the gates and the city feels different. You carry a new sense of stewardship. And the next stop on our journey, Riverside Parks and Historic Neighborhoods, reveals how that stewardship reshapes public life. From concrete block to conservation corridor, the story of this zoo ties directly into the larger tapestry we've been following across the state. Soon we'll follow those corridors down to the riverfront, where bridges and boathouses recall the same ecological challenges the zoo confronts on a human scale. They're the solutions born in the zoo: habitat restoration, community science, and public education meet the daily rhythms of the city and invite residents to join the work. Limestone-rich springs beneath Kentucky's bluegrass give its pastures a rare mineral profile that helped shape world-class thoroughbreds. Do you know Lexington's farm tours still follow century-old routines at places like Calumet and Claiborne, where bloodlines and barn crafts passed through generations remain living history? Guides unlock quiet surprises: foals gambling on dew-soaked sod, weathered stall doors holding plaques that name champions, and private cemeteries where legends rest. Tours trace training lanes carved between stone fences, explaining how Cecil, Water, and Kerfuffle breeding conspired to create horses that dominate Triple Crown races. You'll meet farriers and grooms who treat each animal like an archive of lineage and temperament, describing habits no guidebook captures. Some farms allow you to stand near majestic stallions, whose offspring fetch fortunes and rewrite pedigrees, a quiet exchange between human craft and equine instinct. Behind white plank fences, small museums and private libraries hold saddlecloths, ribbons, and veterinary notes that reveal training shifts over decades. You may discover that a seemingly minor change, altering turnout schedules, or a grain mix, sent ripples through racing history when a single foal prospered. Lunch conversations often drift to rivalries between farms, secretive breeding choices, and the quiet economics that keep the industry alive. For visitors, the real thrill is less about spectacle and more about connecting threads, how weather, water, and human decisions converge in a foal's first heartbeat. Some tours end at old breeding barns where owners will quietly point to stall plates and tell you a single mating that changed a farm's fate. And as you step back into Lexington's streets afterward, you carry with you a puzzle of foots, scents, and small choices that suddenly make sense. Later chapters of the tour reveal breeders' notebooks and a few hush-hush strategies still used today. Those secrets bind past winners to futures. Louisville Waterfront Park stretches along the Ohio River, with grassy lawns and sweeping river views rarely matched in an inland American city. It was built on reclaimed industrial land and now hosts festivals, kayaks, and skyline sunsets that transform the river into a stage. Walk the wide promenades, and you can still find traces of the city's shipping past etched into old pilings and rail lines. Families gather on the Great Lawn, while joggers follow the river toward the glowing silhouette of the Big Four Bridge. The park's blend of modern landscape design and raw riverfront history makes it a living portrait of Louisville's reinvention. At night, the pedestrian bridge lights thread the water with color and invite you across to Jeffersonville, Indiana, blurring state lines. Art installations appear along the paths, each one a small mystery that nudges you to slow down and look closer. Seasonal concerts and food trucks create a rhythm that feels local and electric without ever shouting for attention. From the park, you can watch barges push mud and cargo downstream, a reminder that the Ohio remains the city's circulatory system. That river connection is also the key that ties Louisville Waterfront Park to the larger story of Kentucky's waterway and their towns. Strolling here before dawn, you might catch a mist rising off the river, while the skyline sharpens like a drawing. Photographers come for that light, but residents simply come because the park belongs to everyone from toddlers to retirees. If you follow the river path north, the Big Four Bridge will carry you into new neighborhoods and a fresh perspective on the Ohio's role in the region. From there, the trail networks extend outward, linking parks, neighborhoods, and the long history that runs along the water. For visitors, the park offers an approachable portrait of Kentucky that balances nature, industry, and community in one ribbon of green. It's a place where the city breathes and where the river tells you how to read Louisville's past and imagine its future. So linger on a bench, watch a steamboat pass, and let the riverside shapes guide you toward the next stop on your Kentucky journey. The park's openness makes it easy to move on, whether you're headed for the Muhammad Ali Center or the flavors of Main Street. The river leads the way. Louisville Waterfront Park is more than a park. It is the city's riverfront heart, open and changing with each season. And when you leave, the water will have already rewritten a small part of your story about Kentucky. The Big South Fork of the Cumberland River carved a labyrinth of sandstone gorges and natural bridges that is unmatched in much of the eastern United States. This rugged landscape, straddling Kentucky and Tennessee, on the Cumberland Plateau, preserves a rare concentration of arches, potholes, and box canyons sculpted from Pennsylvanian-age sandstone. Hiking into the gorge reveals sheer cliffs, layered with swirls of iron-stained rock and old-growth pockets where tulip poplar and eastern hemlock cling to impossible ledges. Lace-like rock residues and curving natural bridges hide inside canyons, each one feeling like a secret cathedral, cut by water and time. Beyond its geology, Big South Fork is threaded with human stories, from early Cherokee trails to the coal and logging boom, marked by abandoned rail grades and wooden trestles. The remnants of the Kentucky and Tennessee Railway and tumbled ruins of homesteads are echoes you can still trace along riverbanks and ridge lines. For paddlers, the river offers braided channels and sudden rapids that change with the seasons, carving new channels and revealing fossilized imprints in exposed beds. Birdsong and the call of the pileated woodpecker fill the hollows, while river otters and white-tailed deer move silently through the understory. Archaeologists have uncovered rock shelters and campsites here that speak of human presence thousands of years old, connecting this wild cathedral to an ancient past. Park rangers will tell you the best way to read this place is slowly, following creek beds downstream until the map stops making sense and the land tells its own story. From here, the plateau threads toward other Kentucky wonders, its sandstone grammar, echoed in the cliffs of Red River Gorge, and the sinkhole-scattered karst that leads to Mammoth Cave's subterranean world. The transition from canyon rim to cavern is a lesson in how water rewrites landscape above and below ground. The Belle of Louisville glides on the Ohio River, while nearby Mammoth Cave holds the world's longest known cave system, a rare subterranean labyrinth that reshaped how Americans traveled in the 19th century. Do you know Mammoth Cave was once reached by river steamboats that fed a boom in tourism? And the Belle of Louisville is a living link to that vanished era. Built in 1914 and originally named Idlewild, the Belle is the oldest operating Mississippi River-style steamboat in the United States. Her white-painted superstructure and massive stern wheel are not just for show. They are functional relics of engineering that once powered commerce and culture across the inland waterways. Passengers who climb her gangway today step directly into the rhythms of a century ago, from brass railings to the echoing call of deckhands. Each voyage becomes a classroom where stories of riverboat gamblers, wartime transports, and river families are passed like heirlooms. Festival parades and timeless river races have kept the Belle at the heart of Louisville's civic memory, linking neighborhoods to the waterfront. That connection threads outward too, because the river once ferried goods and people toward Kentucky's cave country and the wider world beyond. The Belle's boilers and paddle wheel have been lovingly restored, but they still remind you that this is a working vessel, not just a museum piece. When steam hisses and the paddle churns, you can almost hear the commercial heartbeat that once fueled river cities up and down the Ohio and Mississippi. Guides on board fold local legends into navigational facts, explaining how floods and freezes, steamboat races, and river laws shape the state's landscape. They point to riverbanks where once thriving ports faded and explain how those same waters supplied tourists who disembarked to explore caves, farms, and burgeoning towns. The Belle also embodies cultural continuity. Jazz bands, family reunions, and wedding parties have all found a stage on her decks. Through those celebrations, the steamboat connects Louisville's present-day festivals to the riverborne traditions of earlier Kentuckians. A cruise at dusk turns the skyline into a ribbon of light, as the stern wheel's wake keeps time with the Mississippi-style melodies drifting from the saloon. That nocturnal ritual has become a portal, coaxing visitors to imagine the river as both highway and storyteller, linking Louisville to cave tours, bourbon trails, and Appalachian roads. Preservationists argue that keeping the Belle alive does more than honor nostalgia. It preserves a transport system that shaped settlement, commerce, and leisure across the region. In that sense, the steamboat is a living map. Each whistle, plank, and rivet marks a route between places now visited for history, recreation, and wonder. Climbing aboard, you don't just observe history, you float through it, tracing paths that once carried miners, tourists, and ordinary families. And as the Belle turns her stern wheel toward the next bend, she invites you to follow those riverborne stories deeper into Kentucky's hidden landscapes. Beneath the arches of the Ohio River Bridge, Newport Aquarium gathers creatures from every corner of the planet. Yet it also celebrates Kentucky's river heritage in a way few museums do. Do you know this aquarium is home to the Shark Bridge, a rope walkway that lets visitors cross above dozens of shark species while feeling the ripple of the water below? Inside the tunnel, rays and groupers glide overhead and around you, compressing an entire ocean into a moment you can walk through. Beyond the glass, Penguin Palooza stages the unexpected. African penguins adapted to riverside life, waddling and calling like island ambassadors in Kentucky. The aquarium's design intentionally bridges natural history and local culture, showing how the Ohio's currents shaped both fish migrations and the cities along its banks. Step into Gator Alley and you'll meet reptiles whose ancestors shared environments with the early settlers of Kentucky, a living link between past and present. Exhibit by exhibit, the narrative flows outward, the Shark Tank's current pulling you toward stories of river trade and steamboats. Alongside live shows and interactive displays, scientists at the aquarium run conservation programs that tag local fish and monitor migration patterns in the Ohio. Those efforts reveal surprising connections. Specimens brought here from international reefs help staff understand threats to native mussels and freshwater species. At the edge of the riverfront, glycol-cooled tanks and educational labs quietly convert curiosity into action, training stewards for the waterways that define Kentucky's identity. By the time you leave, the aquarium has done more than show you fish. It has reframed how you see the Ohio itself, from highway to habitat. And because Newport sits where city, river, and state converge, its tanks become portals to the larger Kentucky story, one of migration, industry, and unexpected biodiversity. Beneath the rolling hills lies Mammoth Cave, the longest cave system on Earth, whose chambers preserve stories written in stone over millions of years. Its underground rivers and labyrinthine passages start a journey that leads above ground to the rivers and ridge lines of the land between the lakes. There, where the Tennessee and Cumberland shape a tapestry of wetlands, you'll find wildlife corridors that connect to the forested ridges of the Daniel Boone National Forest. From those ridges pours the sandstone spectacle of Red River Gorge, where natural arches and vertical cliffs have become a climber's paradise. Follow the gorge's climbing routes downstream, and you'll arrive at Cumberland Falls, famed for producing one of the few regularly occurring moonbows in the world. That same water, tumbling through gorges and hollows, has carved routes that settlers, traders, and musicians once used to move between farms and distilleries. Those farm roads lead straight into the bluegrass region, where limestone-rich soil feeds the pastures that make Kentucky's world-class, thoroughbred horses races. And while cities like Louisville and Bowling Green pulse with modern energy, they are only chapters in a landscape book whose spine is made of limestone, water, and deep-rooted traditions. So when you leave, you'll carry more than postcards. You'll carry new questions. How do the moonbows form? Where does that hidden river go? And which old recipe still flavors a family table after 3 centuries. Those questions are invitations to return and to walk the thin line Kentucky draws between wild wonder and human craft. Let the caves, cliffs, horses, and barrels be your guides back through a place that keeps surprising those who think they know it well. Kentucky doesn't end at its borders. It opens a route into stories that keep unfolding beneath and beyond its hills.